Hello everybody, this is GrandOwlGaming with a brand new video today. And today that video is the GrandOwlGaming discusses SpongeBob SquarePants' new episode, Goodbye Krabby Patty. Now this episode was supposed to be the 200th episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, but considering based off of the Wikipedia page of SpongeBob, there were some episodes that, the future episodes, that actually appeared during the SpongeBob SquarePants challenge thing that they were doing back in the fall of 2016. Episodes like Bulletin Board, I think Food Con, were episodes that were supposedly supposed to be for next season, but ended up appearing in the fall 2016 lineup. Why they didn't decide to wait and then just give out this big special as the actual 200th episode, I'm not really sure about. But that's all water under the bridge, so let's get started. The episode begins with a simple premise, a simple idea. Basically, it's actually SpongeBob and SpongeBob and Patrick doing a montage about them being best friends and everything. And then after that, it turns out, hey, Mr. Krabs, he's getting some freezer food and everything. And even though the marketing and stuff looks bad, because I think it was like, lonely dinner for Krabs or something, now 30% lonelier. Like, that sounds like bad marketing and bad advertisement, basically. But because of it being so convenient, Mr. Krabs decides to get it anyway. And SpongeBob was like, oh, what if we made the Krabby Patties just as convenient? So, with that idea basically under everyone's belt, they decided to basically just, make Krabby Patties, kind of like, I want to say freezer edition of Krabby Patties, if that's even a thing. Well, it was a thing for this episode, I guess you could say. But basically, they go to a marketing team, and there are some slight little things that you begin to notice throughout the episode, like how they begin to talk about ideas like that old is bad. Like the quote-unquote antagonists of the episode begin to mention things like that old is bad and that new and fresh ideas are better. Like, it's okay to be old, but not too old. And there was even a scene where it's like they replace an old guy who was like, oh, I think old is good, and then they replace him with a baby who has a little phone, and her first words are social networking. So I guess that's kind of SpongeBob's jab at the ideas of I don't even know what they were trying to do there. I guess it's just an idea of either rejecting change and keeping things the way they are. I really hope that SpongeBob isn't trying to pull a Teen Titans Go on us, by saying oh, hey, this is what happens when new things come around. But they weren't that obvious in this episode. I mean, they were kind of obvious because it was oh, we're gonna get rid of the Krabby Patty and make everything new and give us changes. But at the same time, I don't think that that's what SpongeBob was trying to aim for, because unlike the Teen Titans Go cast and development team, these guys aren't a bunch of dicks that are just trying to be artistic to prove a point. These guys are actually trying to make an episode. But I just thought that was something interesting, like the baby being there, the Krusty Krab being turned into a museum, and even Patrick having the quote, I wish things were back the way they were. Stuff like that. So I kind of wonder if that's what they were trying to do, but at the same time, I'm not going to think of it too much. Now, on with the rest of the thing. So basically, the marketing team is there, and then they're like, okay, we're going to change the Krabby Patty. And then they actually built a factory behind the Krusty Krab where it's it's a manufacturing team making the Krabby Patties. And then for some reason they put sand in the Krabby Patties. I don't know why they did that. It's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna put sand in the Krabby Patties as quote-unquote filler. But the thing is that the Krabby Patty is a sandwich. I don't see why you would have to add sand to it. I know in that one episode when Mr. Krabs kind of sells the Krusty Krab and stuff, that they kind of make those gray synth patties or whatever. And it was just like, okay, yeah, the entire Krabby Patty is that gray thing is compressed to look like a Krabby Patty. And, you know, people eat it and it tastes the same and everything. But in this case, it's like, oh, you can actually tell that there's sand in it. People are, you know, choking to get the stuff down, and there are some side effects. But I'm not going to talk about those side effects. I might show them on screen, but I'm not going to talk about them. You just have to watch the episode for yourself. So, continuing on, basically, you know, Mr. Krabs gets rich based off of these new sand-based Krabby Patties and everything. And then finally, they're like, okay, so now we just need a spokesperson for it. And then they use Patrick as a spokesperson. So they use Patrick, he gets rich off of it, and everyone's loving these things except for SpongeBob and Squidward. SpongeBob gets fired, quote-unquote fired from his job, and then rehired as basically the guy to run the museum. And Squidward gets fired, like permanently fired, he's gone. So it's kind of weird just seeing Mr. Krabs throw all this stuff away, especially for money. Even when the idea of changing the secret formula came in, and they were just like, oh, how much is that going to cost me? Like, he was skeptical at first, but then they were like, oh, a lot. How much a lot? A lot. Like, that right there, that wouldn't convince anybody. But it's SpongeBob logic, so I guess it works. But aside from that, basically, there's a museum now. Everyone feels like that their lives are getting ruined. Even Plankton doesn't seem all too happy about it, because he thinks that he can steal the secret formula. And then SpongeBob was like, oh, you know, we're just giving away the secret formula, even though it's like a blank piece of paper. So even Plankton isn't, you know, so happy about this. The one piece of potential that I really think that they missed out on here was when they let Plankton get away with it, and then SpongeBob was like, oh, what's the point? Like, that was kind of a powerful scene, because it's like, oh, what's the point of even trying anymore? Just let Plankton get away with it. But then at that moment, what they could have done was that they could have had Plankton discover, like, obviously he's gonna pick apart the patty and try to discover its secret formula and everything. So you'd think that he would know that there was some kind of sand in it. And they could have had Plankton more involved in the episode. Throughout this entire episode, I was actually waiting for Plankton to, you know, kind of show up and make some kind of appearance. But he barely does, which is kind of unfortunate. And just when he does, they mess it up. And then they have SpongeBob eat the Krabby Patty, and then it turned out that he has sand pouring out of him. And then they're like, oh wait, the patties are made out of sand, but apparently Squidward already knew that. So then he actually makes a fresh Krabby Patty, and then they end up, you know, or he ends up running over to try and give the fresh patty to Patrick. And then after that, you know, Patrick, he kind of misses SpongeBob, like, and then he runs over to SpongeBob, and then they meet up, and then they discover that it's made out of sand. Then it turns out that Patrick is debuting for his 400th commercial, and before the 400th commercial started, Patrick basically was going to give like a little speech about how he felt about the frozen Krabby Patties. After that, he ends up revealing that they're made out of sand, everyone coughs up the sand, and then the Krabby Patty business gets shut down. After that, it turns out that Mr. Krabs is, you know, he's down on his luck, but then he realizes that the Krusty Krab is full of customers again. Why? Because of the fresh Krabby Patties that SpongeBob made. And then everybody, you know, basically everything goes back to the way it was. Nothing changed. Status quo is God, basically. And that's why I call it a rating trap, because it seemed like that there was going to be this big change. Here's the thing. Nickelodeon, Nicktoons, Nick2, and T-Nick all aired this at the exact same time. Now, there's only one real moment in history where this actually happens in all of Nickelodeon history, and that's during the Kids' Choice Awards. Now, because of that, I was thinking this is going to be the biggest thing. There's going to be actually a permanent change to SpongeBob, but it looks like that they kept everything the same. And even worse, I'm afraid that we might have been TTG'd in this situation. I really don't want to think that we were TTG'd because it's SpongeBob, and I think that they have more integrity than that. But I think that part of me is going to be staying up late at night thinking, did we just get Teen Titans Go by SpongeBob, of all things? I don't know. Part of me kind of worries about it. Also, the episode kind of didn't work because of the way that they treated the plot. It seemed like that there were 3 different things going on. Number 1 was, of course, Patrick and his rise to stardom, and then SpongeBob and Patrick kind of, splitting up, their friendship basically being tested and everything. That alone could have been a standalone episode. And even then, I kind of feel like that episode has been done plenty of times. Remember that episode when SpongeBob found that pearl and then he got a whole lot of money from it? Yeah, that's basically what this episode reminds me of. One friend getting rich, powerful, and famous, and then having to leave the other friend in the dust. But then again, that could have worked as its own standalone episode, even if it was for one segment. I feel that could have worked just as an episode, all by itself. The second plot was, of course, the synthesized Krabby Patties going on, the frozen Krabby Patties, whatever you want to call them. That, of course, was what the episode was about, but it felt like that it kept on getting sidetracked by all of these different things that were going on. And then, of course, the third one was the mini plot with Squidward getting fired. And then, Squidward was like that, I'm going to achieve my own dreams. Like that little speech that he had, where he had all of these things that he was going to do. I actually would have liked to see an episode where Squidward tried to do his own thing. And then after that, he either succeeds or he fails at them. And then after that, they try to get, their favorite cashier back. That could have been a standalone episode. It felt like that they took 3 separate episodes and then they had to mesh them into one 30-minute abomination that was Goodbye Krabby Patty. It's not that I don't like the episode, but I'm kind of afraid of afraid of what this message is, trying to be taught here. Number 2, I was a little confused as to why they put 3 episodes into one. And number 3, just overall disappointed with how everything was executed and all of the potential that could have been put into this big episode that was apparently so life-changing that all of the Viacom stations literally had to switch all eyes on SpongeBob, basically treating it like it was like a 1/4 of the Kids' Choice Awards or something like that. And I just think that was very disappointing. But either way, I'm still gonna hope the best for SpongeBob. I think that maybe it'll, get its stride back. I'm not sure, but we'll just have to wait. We'll just have to wait for the future. And that was my short little review on, the SpongeBob episode. So, if you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe, be sure to donate to the Patreon, like me on Facebook and Twitter, and my Tumblr. All of that is greatly appreciated, and you know the rest. This is GrandOwlGaming signing out. Stay beautiful, everyone.